Rupert, very good morning to you.
Good morning, James.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So, look, the big talk, and there are plenty of conversations in many of the papers about the King's visit to hospital, part of the sort of cancer treatment, cancelling various different things in events that he was supposed to be attending yesterday, and then indeed popping off for the weekend down to Gloucestershire to his country pile there to perhaps have a little weekend off. How worried should we be about his health?
I think we've always known that because he's been continually having treatment, as he says, he's living with cancer at the moment, and they're just managing his schedule. Look, as it's been referred to, this is a bump in the road, but as he says, he's going to, quoting Churchill, if you're happy for me to use this particular phrase, but he's going to keep on, as he says, to make sure that he's not going to let this cancer treatment stand in the way, because he also feels, yes, that physically, but being out and doing his job makes him feel sort of mentally and spiritually better, because this is what he's here to do. So he's not going to let it, as I say, grind him down. But obviously there was a little bit of a setback post some treatment that he had this week. But as you say, he then was seen yesterday with his window down in his car, heading off to go to Highgrove, where I'm sure it's a lovely sunny day in the Cotswolds, because that's where I'm talking to you from. So I'm sure he will be pottering around in his garden, although...
Have you been invited over, Rupert?
Sorry?
Have you been invited over?
No, unlikely to happen, but it's a bit of a schlep, but I'm in the north part of the Cotswolds, but it's lovely here. But I assume the Queen is going to try and prevent him doing what he loves doing best, which is hedge laying. But so I'm sure a restful weekend, bearing in mind that he's off to Italy shortly for a state visit, which was due to meet the Pope, but I believe due to the Pope's ill health, that might not be happening.
And as you say, you know, there is this sort of discussion, you know, he's off to Highgrove for a few days. They have indicated that the schedule will be sort of back on schedule next week. This is a bump in the road, etc., etc. There is also discussion about whether he's doing too much. That I suppose, you know, we look at the royal family, we saw the Queen, the previous, you know, the late Queen's workload and what she continued to do in her life, but she had done it all her life. Whereas, of course, here is somebody who has been king in waiting and then becomes king at a stage where, frankly, most people would be retiring. Do we perhaps need to expect less of the head of the royal family and maybe encourage others to do more?
Well, the trouble is, it's the royal family is a bit thin on the ground, and of course, one of the he wants to still do the public-facing engagements, because that is what he's here for. He wants to be seen and meeting the public, and that's why it would have been bitterly disappointing for him that he wasn't in Birmingham. But I see what you're saying. But the trouble is, we've got the Princess of Wales currently still recovering from cancer. It's something that needs managing. And obviously, Prince William has he's pulled in both directions, but they're a bit thin on the ground as a result of the departure of the Duke and Duchess of Montecito. So it does cause them a few problems. So I'm not sure what you can do about it, but they are very mindful that they have to keep the show on the road. And that's why the King is determined to try and go about his business as normal while managing his cancer treatment.
And as you say, that's all ongoing. And just finally to you, Rupert, as we look ahead, I mean, you know, springtime is kind of when we see more royal activity, perhaps. I'm assuming that we're going to see, yes, lots of the King and Queen, but also presumably other senior members of the royal family out and about at various different events.
Absolutely. You know, it's the usual summer garden parties, you name it, trooping of the colour, the King's birthday parade. How will Royal Ascot look? So I'm sure the King will want to try and go about his business as regular without interfering, because, you know, every royal visit takes a lot of organising, and it's not just sort of thrown together at the start of the week like some of us do our diaries. But in his case, it's months in advance, and a lot of people put a lot of work into these things. So he will be frustrated, but hopefully he's having a lovely time pottering around his garden in a lovely spring day, and hoping that he'll be back to work next week doing whatever's supposed to be scheduled in the diary.
Well, that's certainly something I'd like to be doing, pottering around the garden. It's time to get those seeds in. I tell you, a lot of work to be doing. There we go, Rupert Bell, Talks royal correspondent. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here.